Hi there. Before I tell you my story, let me just say, thank you for listening. This isn't easy for me to share, but I've reached a place in life where silence no longer serves me. If what I'm about to say helps even one person feel seen, then it's worth every word. My name is Sienna, I'm 33 years old, and I'm 7 months pregnant. I live in a quiet neighborhood in Brookhaven with my husband Adrian, who's the only person in my life that's ever made me feel truly safe. Our home isn't extravagant, but it's filled with peace, honesty, and warmth, 3 things I never experienced in my childhood. Most evenings, I find myself by the window, hands resting on my belly, listening to the stillness of the world outside. It's in those moments that I reflect on everything I've walked away from, my family, their wealth, their pride, their control. I've made peace with my choices, but I would be lying if I said I didn't sometimes feel the sting of what could have been, had things been different. 4 years ago, I cut ties with my parents and my sister. The final break came when I told them I was pregnant. Instead of joy or support, I was met with judgment, sarcasm, and insults. My mother, Erica, said I wasn't ready to be a mother myself. My father, Philip, warned me not to give my child the Williams last name, as if my child were some kind of stain on their legacy. And my sister, Jenna, laughed and asked if I planned on raising the baby in a rented apartment with secondhand furniture. I left their house that day and never looked back. I wasn't supposed to hear from them again. But 2 days ago, my phone rang. It was my mother. I hesitated before answering, the old tension creeping up my spine. Her voice, cold and calculated as ever, carried through the line. We're hosting a baby shower for you this Saturday at Listener, 8 p.m. sharp. Everything's arranged. Be there. There was no warmth in her voice, just expectation. I didn't respond right away, but something in me knew this wasn't about celebration. It was about control. Again, I agreed to come, not because I wanted their approval, but because it was time to confront everything once and for all. Saturday arrived sooner than I expected. As I stood in front of the mirror adjusting the soft folds of my navy maternity dress, I caught my own reflection and hesitated. I didn't look like the women in my family, no flashy labels, no polished perfection. Just simple, clean, and comfortable. And yet, I felt powerful. My hand instinctively cradled the curve of my belly. I wasn't just going for myself anymore, I was going for him. For Leo. Adrian walked in, adjusting the cuff of his suit jacket. You sure you want to do this? He asked gently. His eyes always held so much care, like he could see the weight I carried even when I smiled. I nodded, firm but calm. I need to look them in the eyes one last time. We arrived at Listener just before 8 p.m. The restaurant's golden glow spilled onto the cobblestone path outside, its Art Deco facade glittering with wealth and exclusivity. It wasn't my kind of place, but I knew it well. Adrian had taken me here once, years ago, when it first opened. Back then, it felt intimidating. Tonight, it felt like a stage. Inside, the air smelled of butter, wine, and roses. The maitre d', a polished young man named Tyler, greeted us with a forced smile. Are you here for the Williams party? I nodded. His face flickered with unease. Actually, they've already finished their meal. Confused, I reached for my phone and showed him the message from my mother. She said 8 p.m. Tyler leaned in slightly and lowered his voice. Their reservation was at 6. I think they changed the time. Of course they did. I should have expected it. With a sigh, I thanked him and followed him toward the private dining room. The moment I stepped in, my stomach turned, not from the baby, but from the atmosphere. The table was cluttered with empty wine glasses, dessert plates, and half-eaten entrees. My mother Erica sat at the head of the table, draped in pearls and wrapped in a white Chanel jacket, sipping her drink like royalty. My father Philip looked awkward, fiddling with his napkin. And my sister Jenna, ever the star of her own show, leaned back in her chair, scrolling through her phone with a smug smirk. Oh, Sienna, you made it, Erica said with mock surprise. We were starting to think you weren't coming. I didn't sit down. The message said 8. Jenna looked up and shrugged. I told her 7. Maybe you read it wrong. I stayed silent, knowing exactly what game they were playing. But this time, I wasn't going to fold. I stood at the edge of the room, taking in the scene like an outsider observing a play. Erica gestured toward a waiter, who brought over a folded bill in a leather booklet and placed it neatly at the center of the table. "Well," she said brightly, "since the guest of honor is finally here, we were just about to take care of the check." I narrowed my eyes. Something didn't feel right. "You've already eaten," I said. "What check?" Erica looked directly at me, her smile sharp as glass. "The baby shower dinner, of course. Custom menu, wine pairings, floral arrangements, it all adds up. But it's your special day, Sienna. Naturally, we assumed you'd cover it." My heart thudded. "Excuse me?" Jenna leaned forward, elbows on the table, her voice dripping with condescension. "Come on, Sienna. You're married to a CEO. Surely a little celebration like this isn't a big deal. It's just $6,800. I blinked, stunned. "You planned a baby shower I didn't ask for, purposely changed the time so I'd arrive late, and now you expect me to pay for it." Erica waved her hand. "Don't be dramatic. It's not about the money. It's about respect. This is a Williams family event. You represent us whether you like it or not. Or would you have preferred pizza and paper plates?" I felt Leo shift inside me, as if he, too, sensed the rising pressure in the room. My hands trembled slightly, but I kept my voice steady. "No. I'm not paying for this. You set this up to humiliate me, and I won't be part of it." Philip cleared his throat uncomfortably, but said nothing. Jenna laughed, a quick, dismissive sound. "Of course she won't. She never takes responsibility for anything." I turned to leave. "I don't owe you anything, especially not $6,800. Erica stood up, her voice growing sharp. "You ungrateful little girl. We built this name. We gave you everything. And now you spit in our face like this." I turned back, my voice louder this time, firm. "You didn't build anything. You bought appearances. I'm done pretending I owe you gratitude for your cruelty." That was the moment her face changed. Rage flushed her cheeks, and in one swift motion, she reached to the host's stand beside her, where the thick wooden menu board still sat. Before I could react, she lifted it with both hands and brought it down on my head. The room erupted in gasps as the heavy wood cracked against my skull. I stumbled back, the pain sharp and immediate, blood beginning to drip down the side of my face. My legs gave out beneath me, and I collapsed. Everything around me blurred into streaks of gold and red, the chandeliers above, the horrified faces, the distant clinking of glasses that suddenly fell silent. I was aware of the warmth trickling down the side of my face, the weight of my body sinking into the cold marble floor, and the gasp that escaped my lips not because of pain alone, but because I feared for the little life growing inside me. Then I heard his voice. "Sienna?" Adrian's footsteps thundered across the dining room. He dropped to his knees beside me, panic etched deep in his face. His hand cupped the side of my head as he gently turned me toward him, his thumb brushing away a streak of blood. "Stay with me," he whispered. "It's okay. I've got you." He looked up, voice firm and furious. "Call 911. She's pregnant, she's bleeding." The restaurant staff scattered into motion. Tyler, the manager, was already dialing his phone. Several waiters ushered other guests away as the air grew thick with disbelief and fear. Erica stood frozen, the wooden menu board still in her trembling hands. Her eyes darted between me and Adrian, her mouth parted, as if the reality of what she'd just done was only beginning to settle in. Jenna, for once, was speechless. Philip sat pale and motionless, staring down at the wine glass in front of him like it might give him answers. Within minutes, the screech of sirens sliced through the silence outside. Red and blue lights flashed across the restaurant walls as police officers and paramedics rushed in. Adrian gently stepped aside as a medic knelt to examine me, asking questions. Was I dizzy? Could I feel the baby moving? Could I speak? I nodded weakly, whispering, "My head and my baby." The medic reassured me they'd check everything, and they carefully placed a support collar around my neck. Meanwhile, Officer Grant, a tall, stern officer with a sharp jawline and calm authority, approached the table. "Who assaulted this woman?" he asked clearly. Adrian pointed directly at Erica.
"She did."
"That's my wife. She's 7 months pregnant. She hit her with that board." Erica opened her mouth, but her voice cracked. It wasn't supposed to." "You're under arrest," Officer Grant said firmly, stepping toward her. "You have the right to remain silent." As he handcuffed her, the other officers took statements from witnesses, including the restaurant staff and Tyler, who confirmed that the reservation time had been manipulated and that everything had been planned without Sienna's knowledge. Chef Marco, the restaurant's owner, arrived moments later. Upon learning what had happened, he immediately cooperated with the authorities, offering security footage, financial records, and digital communication logs between Erica and the restaurant. As I was lifted onto the stretcher and wheeled toward the ambulance, Adrian stayed at my side, holding my hand tightly. "I'm here," he whispered, "and they're going to pay for everything." I believed him. 3 weeks later, I found myself sitting quietly in the front row of the Brookhaven County Courthouse, my body sore but healing, my mind sharper than ever. I was now approaching the end of my 8th month of pregnancy. Leo kicked gently from time to time, as if reminding me he was still with me, still safe. Adrian sat beside me, his hand resting on mine, both of us watching as the court officers prepared for the opening of a case that would expose everything my family had tried to hide for years. Inside the courtroom, seated at the defense table, were the same 3 people who had tried to control me all my life: my mother Erica, my father Philip, and my sister Jenna. But today, there were no pearls, no designer jackets, no smug smiles. Just pale skin, trembling hands, and a silence that echoed louder than anything they'd ever said to me. Their lawyer whispered nervously to them, but I could see the panic in their eyes. This time, there was no covering up the truth. The prosecutor, Victoria Reed, stood confidently and addressed the court. She began with the assault. "Your Honor, this case began with a violent act committed against a pregnant woman in a public restaurant. The assault was not only physical, it was symbolic of years of emotional manipulation and financial abuse by her own family. But that was just the surface." Victoria then presented the restaurant security footage, clearly showing Erica lifting and slamming the wooden menu board against my head. She played audio clips of the conversation before the attack, proving the $6,800 bill was part of a planned humiliation. Then came the second part of the case, the financial crimes. Victoria laid out a timeline of years of fraud committed by Philip through the Williams family real estate business: falsified invoices, embezzled funds, hidden debts dating back to 2010. Jenna's role in it all became clear. She had collected a salary for years without real work, filed false documents during her divorce, and claimed fake sales figures to maintain her image. When Adrian took the stand, he spoke with clarity and unwavering composure. "They tried to bury my wife in shame, in fear, in debt, but they forgot who she really is. And they underestimated me. I own listener, and I had every record, every message, every surveillance angle saved." He provided spreadsheets, emails, and call logs. He testified not only to the restaurant attack, but also to the fraudulent behavior that had long tainted the Williams name. The courtroom was still when Victoria concluded. "What we have here is not a family legacy. What we have is a legacy of fraud, abuse, and manipulation. And now, justice must be served." The defense tried to paint it as a misunderstanding, Erica's actions as a moment of emotional distress, Philip's choices as financial desperation, Jenna's involvement as minimal. But it didn't matter. The truth was too loud to be ignored. The judge took only a few days to return with a verdict. The courtroom was filled with a heavy silence as the judge entered and took his seat. I sat upright, one hand on my belly, the other clasped in Adrian's. My heart pounded, not from fear, but from the weight of this moment. Years of silence, humiliation, and emotional torment had led to this single point in time. I didn't know what justice would feel like, but I was ready to find out. The judge, A composed and clear-voiced man in his 60s adjusted his glasses and read from the documents in front of him. In the matter of Erica Williams, Philip Williams, and Jenna Williams, this court finds the defendants guilty on multiple counts including assault with a deadly object, financial fraud, embezzlement, and falsification of legal documents. Erica closed her eyes. Jenna's shoulders collapsed. Philip exhaled shakily, his face ghostly pale. The judge continued. Erica Williams is hereby sentenced to 5 years in state prison for aggravated assault and accessory to financial fraud. Philip Williams is sentenced to 6 years in prison for embezzlement, tax fraud, and falsification of business records. Jenna Williams is sentenced to 4 years in prison, with 1 year suspended, for her role in document fraud, illegal income claims, and participation in false reporting. He paused, then looked directly at the defense table. Let this be a reminder that social image and status do not place anyone above the law. The court orders immediate seizure of all remaining Williams family assets. The estate will be liquidated. All fraudulent earnings must be returned. There were no outbursts, just stillness, an eerie, cold realization settling over my former family. As the bailiffs moved in to escort the 3 of them away, Erica turned around. Her voice cracked through the silence. Sienna, please. You don't have to do this. We're your family. I stood up slowly, my legs steady despite the weight I carried, both physical and emotional. You stopped being my family the day you chose control over care. I'm protecting my son. This was never about revenge. This was about ending the cycle. She didn't say another word. The 3 of them were let out in cuffs, their steps heavy and defeated. Outside the courthouse, the spring sun warmed my face. For the first time in years, I felt truly free. Just 4 days after the sentencing, I was standing in the kitchen folding a small blue blanket when I felt the first contraction hit. It wasn't sudden or sharp, just a slow, intense pressure that made me pause mid-movement and grip the edge of the counter. I'd felt Braxton Hicks before, but this was different. This was real. Adrian. I called calmly, my voice steady but urgent. He appeared almost instantly, eyes wide with alertness. It's time, I whispered, placing his hand over my belly. He didn't ask a single question. We grabbed the hospital bag that had been packed for weeks and headed to the car, his hand never leaving mine the entire drive. At the hospital, everything moved quickly. Nurses moved efficiently, for lines were set, monitors beeped softly. The contractions intensified. The pain ebbed and surged like ocean waves crashing against my spine, but I focused on my breathing, on Adrian's voice gently counting me through it. I remembered what Erica had said months ago, that I wasn't ready to be a mother, that I couldn't handle it. She was wrong. 10 hours later, with sweat on my brow and tears in my eyes, I heard the most powerful sound in the world, the first cry of my son. They placed him on my chest, tiny, warm, and perfect. Leo, I breathed. Welcome home. Adrian kissed my forehead, his eyes wet. You did it, he whispered. We did it. In that moment, every courtroom, every insult, every wound, physical or emotional, faded into the background. I wasn't broken. I wasn't weak. I was a mother. And my son would never grow up in a home ruled by fear, shame, or control. He would grow up with love. 2 years later, on a crisp autumn morning in Brookhaven, I stood by the window of our sunlit home watching the golden leaves dance in the breeze. Leo, now a vibrant, curious toddler, ran through the backyard laughing as he chased after a falling leaf, his tiny sneakers crunching the grass. His laughter filled the air with life, a sound I had never known in my own childhood, a sound that reminded me daily of how far I'd come. Inside, the fireplace crackled, and the soft scent of cinnamon drifted from the kitchen where Adrian was preparing breakfast. Our life wasn't flashy or extravagant, but it was built on honesty, love, and strength. We had everything that truly mattered. From the bottom drawer of my desk, I pulled out a letter that had arrived last week. It was from Jenna. She was out of prison now, living in a small town under supervised probation. Her handwriting was shaky but familiar. The letter was filled with apologies explanations, and a quiet plea for reconciliation. I folded the paper without finishing it. I didn't need her words. The past couldn't be undone, and I had made peace with that. Forgiveness, maybe, but not return. Adrian walked into the room and wrapped his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder as we watched Leo twirl among the leaves. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded, leaning into him. "Better than okay. We made the right choice. We left behind lies and built something real." He kissed my cheek. "No regrets." I smiled. "Not one." Somewhere far away, my mother Erica was still serving her sentence. My father Philip remained in state custody, and Jenna was starting over on her own terms. I didn't wish them harm, but I no longer carried their burdens. As Leo ran up to the window, holding up a handful of leaves with pride, I opened the door and stepped into the yard to meet him. He ran into my arms, full of joy, full of trust, full of life. And for the first time in forever, I felt completely whole. It was late October, 2 years after the day my world changed. The leaves in Brookhaven had turned golden, and the air held a quiet chill that whispered of endings. I had just returned from the park with Leo when the letter arrived, a stamped envelope addressed in a familiar, tight cursive I hadn't seen in a long time. It was from the Illinois State Correctional Facility. It was from Erica. I didn't open it right away. I let it sit on the table for hours, untouched, while Leo napped and Adrian worked in the study. Finally, as twilight crept through the windows, I broke the seal. Inside was a short letter. No excuses, no explanations, just a request. She wanted to see me. One time. "Please," she had written. "I want to speak to you as your mother, if you'll let me." I didn't answer immediately. But a week later, I found myself sitting in the back seat of a transport vehicle with Adrian beside me, his hand resting on my thigh as we approached the towering stone walls of the prison. I wasn't here for closure, not exactly. I was here to make sure there was nothing left undone, no lingering words or illusions. Inside, the visitation room was sterile and silent, a pale gray space with plastic chairs and reinforced glass. Erica was already seated when I walked in. She looked older, thinner. The elegance she once wore like armor had vanished. Her hair was streaked with gray, her skin pale, lips dry. But her eyes were still sharp. "Sienna," she said, her voice cracking slightly. "You came." I nodded and sat across from her. "I came because I needed to hear it, whatever it is you think you need to say." She looked down for a moment, folding her hands. "I've had time to think. A lot of it. And I know now. I was cruel. Not just once, but for years. I punished you for being different. I let pride come before love." I didn't respond. I needed her to say it all. I told myself I was protecting our family's image. But what I was really doing was hiding my own fears, my failure as a mother. "You didn't deserve the things I said. Or what I did at the restaurant. I hate that that's what you'll remember." I leaned forward slowly. "It's not all I remember. I also remember every time you looked at me like I was a stain. Every time you made me feel like love had to be earned by obedience." Tears welled in her eyes. "I'm sorry." I took a deep breath. "I didn't come here to give you forgiveness, Erica. I came here to make peace with the truth. And the truth is I survived you. I built a life without your approval. I raised a child without your judgment hovering over me. And I'm not angry anymore. I just don't need you in my life." Her lips trembled. "Is he healthy?" "Your son. He's perfect," I said, standing up. "And he'll never know this place. Or the woman you used to be." As I turned to leave, she called out, "Do you hate me?" I paused at the door, but didn't turn around. "No. I've simply moved on." And with that, I walked out, feeling lighter than I had in years. In the parking lot, Adrian stood waiting beside the car. I slipped my hand into his, and together, we drove home to the life we'd built from honesty, love, and resilience. The past no longer followed me. It stayed where it belonged, behind bars. If you connected with his story and felt the weight of Sienna's journey, I'd truly appreciate it if you could like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel for more powerful real-life inspired stories like this. Your support helps bring more voices to life, stories of strength, survival, and the quiet victories that matter most. Thank you for being here.